Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Young here, and today I'm back in a Fortnite video, and in today's video I'm going to be teaching you guys how to counter spam shooters in Fortnite and exactly just what to do if you're getting spammed by multiple players or just getting spammed by one player really bad. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly how to play and counter that. And before we get into the video, I have a V-Buck giveaway. If you guys want a chance to win some free V-Bucks, all you need to do is to drop a like on this video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, turn on my notifications, and leave a comment down below of your Xbox gamer tag, your PSN gamer tag, or Epic account. And as well, if you guys don't already, make sure you guys have me added and supported as a creator. It's super simple to do. All you need to do is go to the item shop, then just tap X and hit support a creator, and then type in my code. It's the same as my gamer tag. Just type in Young Humor and you will have me added and supported as a creator. And alright guys, let's get right to the video. Alright, so for the gameplay in the background, it is a 25 kill game that I had in squads, and I'm not gonna lie, one of the players I ran into the end was extremely sweaty. And as well, there was at least 2 or 3 teams that were spraying me pretty badly throughout this match, especially one team at the end. There was one guy using a turret, and I almost died to him. He pretty much just lasered me down from 150 all the way to 30 HP. And trying to shoot somebody off of a turret can be pretty challenging, but I'm going to show you guys some tips and tricks to help you guys out when it comes to situations like that. So to start off, when it comes to being shot from multiple players, and it's a lot different if we're talking about in a solo match where you're getting shot from 2 different angles, or for pretty much because they're 2 different teams, or if we're talking about people from the exact same team in a squad game, or 2 guys in a duo match, it's a little bit different. And when it comes to fighting off squads, I feel like fighting off squads is a little bit more predictable, or actually it's a lot more predictable. And the reason being, when you're playing against a team, and most of the time they're going to be running in kind of the same direction and kind of going from the same angle, because you're not going to find teams really split. I mean, if you do, it's a rare case, but really you're not going to be finding teams that are going to be that split. So in a game like squads, it's a lot more predictable, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily easier, because if you're going against other teams, say in a duo match where you have 2 teams pushing at the exact same time and you're kind of stuck in the middle, it can be kind of challenging. And mainly for the reason it's really hard to predict and really hard to read what the teams are going to do. And since there is 2 different teams, it's pretty much going to be a free-for-all in between the teams. And even though you're in the middle and most likely to get shot at, it doesn't mean that they're going to be focusing you the entire time. Just because there's 2 different teams, so each of the teams could be shooting at each other at any time. So with that being said, there could be 2 different ways you can play it, and one of my favorite ways to play it, honestly, so there's 2 different ways. So the first way really could just be is so you could sit back a little bit. So if you have the 2 teams that are rushing you and you know they're coming in from 2 different angles, the best thing you can do, or one of the really good ways you can do it, is kind of just sit low a little bit. And what I mean by that is you kind of box yourself in and you wait for the other 2 teams to start shooting each other, and then the second they start shooting each other, maybe one gets knocked, or maybe you see a really good opportunity to go for a kill, and then that's when you come out, because being in the middle of 2 teams is going to be more than likely you're going to get focused on, just because you're in the middle of the 2 teams, and because you're going to be the solo in that situation. It's going to be a lot easier, or maybe you could even have a teammate alive as well, but either way it's going to be a lot more challenging to get out of that fight. So the first good way, like I said, is just kind of to sit low a little bit, wait for the 2 teams to start fighting each other, and then go for the fight. And the second way, kind of the way that I do it the most, is I immediately go for high ground. And if I can't get high ground, then I'm going to do the first method I talked about and wait for the other 2 teams to fight. But most of the time in a public match, I can outbuild pretty much everyone that I'm going against. But you know, you have the occasional sweaty or 2 where they just kind of keep high ground, and it can be very difficult to take it from them. But for the most part, I'm going to be able to get high ground pretty easily. And once I'm on high ground, a lot of the times the 2 teams are going to be on low ground, which is going to make it so much easier to get shots on them. And then not only get shots on them, they could be even shooting at each other. So if you can get high ground right away in the fight, it's going to put you at a huge advantage, because if the 2 teams are on low ground, then a lot of the times if they see each other, they're going to be shooting at each other. But say you're kind of stuck in a situation where you're on low ground, there's another team on low ground, and then you have a team on high ground. And by the high ground, it could be any sort of build, or it even could be like a structure like a mountain or a building. You always want to try to go for the team that's on high ground first, and the reason being is because the team on high ground is going to be the hardest to kill, just because they're so high up, and just having that kind of height advantage, they're just going to be spraying and spraying and spraying. So I would always try to recommend going for that team first, but of course it doesn't mean you always want to go for that team, because it could make more sense to go for the team on low ground if you have one of them like absolutely one shot, and then you know you can get shield and mats off them. Then of course in a situation like that, you want to go for the guy on low ground. But generally speaking, if you're stuck in between 2 teams, then the best thing you can do is just go for the team on high ground. And as far as getting spammed by these teams, one thing that I talked about and one thing that you guys see in a lot of my videos is when I'm building, I'm almost always building out of brick or steel. And for the reason being, it's so much harder to shoot out. And if you're going into a solo squad game, a solo versus duos, or maybe even just a regular solo match, and you're constantly getting shot out game after game, and it's really getting annoying, the best thing you can do is build out of brick and steel, just because the starting initial health is higher than wood, so it's going to be a lot harder for the other players to shoot you out. So if you use something like brick or steel, it's really going to set you at a huge advantage, just because you're not going to get shot out as much. And if the steel is already built, it's very difficult to shoot down a steel structure, just because it has so much HP. I think it has like 500, I could be wrong, but it's got something like that, so it's going to be very difficult after it's placed. So if you're trying to shoot someone out who already has a few pieces of steel already placed, it's going to be very difficult to do so without having to break so much, or at least taking a lot of time to break it. And also, repositioning is going to be huge if you want to avoid getting sprayed, and that's something you're going to see me do here. And instead of just running all the way up, I use my launch pad instead to get high ground. And just by using the launch pad right there, I guarantee you I saved myself probably about 10 mags of scar spam that guy would have had on me. Because if I was trying to come up from low ground and being that far low, I was probably like 10 stars below him, I would have got sprayed. But instead, I had the launch pad, I was able to get a pretty good height on him, and I didn't have to, get sprayed that hard. And that's another thing I did right here. From the build, I went all the way over to the mountain, and from the mountain, I had high ground on all three of the players. And just because I had that high ground, I'm not going to get sprayed as bad. And even if they did spray me, all I had to do was just back up, and they wouldn't be able to hit me at all. But if I were down there fighting them, then it could be a pretty good chance of just getting spammed left and right by all their weapons. And the storm was coming in too, so if I didn't kill him quickly, if I shot him, made him weak, and then they hid in a box, it would have been very challenging, because I wouldn't have gotten any kills on them at all, and I would have got stuck in the storm, which would have been really bad. And also, another really good tip when it comes to not getting spammed, or just preventing from getting spammed really hard, is once you're in a fight, and it doesn't even mean that you're in a fight for very long, but you don't want to stand still as much as you can, or pretty much you don't want to stay in the same place, because once you stay in the same place, that's when you're going to get focused really hard. And it doesn't really mean you can be in the, on the same high ground. It really just means I wouldn't be in the same box. And so if you're on the low ground, or maybe you're even like kind of mid ground, and you're sitting in a box, honestly, the only time I would ever box in a fight is if I'm trying to reload, maybe get off a heal or two, and then I'm going to push out. I'm really not going to try to go for any box plays, kind of any window edits too much. Maybe from time to time if I have a wide open shot, but I'm not really going to try to do too much. And the reason being is because once you're in that box, you have all four players shooting at you at the exact same time, and there really isn't too much to do to counter it really. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're kind of boxed in, the best thing you can do is just immediately edit out and then try to go for high ground. So you want to pop minis. Maybe if it's really desperate, then of course you can try to box in for a quick second. But other than that, I would just try to push for high ground. And once you get the high ground, once you're a few stories above the other player, just overbuild a little bit. And once you got that little bit extra height advantage, that's gonna buy a little bit of time. Then that's when you want to use your minis. And when you're fighting against teams, you always want to try to take individual fights, because if you try to challenge all four at the exact same time, more than likely you're not going to be able to win that fight. So you can also use launch pads like I mentioned earlier to get high ground, but you can also use them to kind of relocate. And once you relocate, the good thing about that is if they follow you, and a lot of times not all four follow you at the exact same time, and it's kind of spread out. So if you kind of move away, most of the time it's going to be one person who's challenging you, and the other teammate's going to be probably 3 or 4 seconds behind, which means it's going to buy you a little bit of time to get that shot off. So if you want to be able to try to take the fights individually, that could be also another really good option. And when it came to finding that player who was on the turret, he was just absolutely lasering me. But the reason I was able to beat him because he really wasn't the smartest of player. The last time he saw me, I was kind of on that mid ground behind one of my structures, and then the next time he saw me, I was on high ground. And so what I pretty much do is I'm peeking around different angles. I'm trying to be unpredictable as possible, because a lot of the times the players who just sit in the turrets really just looking at one direction trying to find you. But if you can poke from different angles to get shots off, that's going to be your best bet. Otherwise, you're just going to get spammed and there's not going to be too much you can do. And especially if you're going to have other teammates who are going to be coming to help them, it's going to be very difficult to win that fight when you have someone on the turret. So you always want to try to pick them off as quickly as possible, but at the same time you don't want to keep challenging from the exact same angle, or you're going to get lasered time and time again. And with that being said, that's wrap up for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys liked it. And if you guys could, drop a like on this video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on my notifications so you're notified for every single new video. And alright guys, I'll see you next video.